You smell that? It's time for another game jam. Brackeys Game Jam is one of the largest game jams out there, and this time the theme was Risk It for the Biscuit. My idea this time around was a lab-based speedrunning game, but more on that later. I started with a square. I know that's not a lot, but trust the process, cause one of us has to write. That's not enough to complete any lab, which meant it was time to add some movement. I also added the first version of a camera following the player, as well as designing the first map for the game. Well, I think we'll have to revisit that one. But it was getting late, which meant that's something to worry about tomorrow. Day 2 started with me adding spikes and a finish line to the game. And before you guys think you can just go back and forth through the finish line to cheat your way to the final lap, I added one-way collision to it. I also experimented with a checkpoint, and I'd like to say more on that later, but the checkpoint never made the full game, and there really isn't any more to it later. I'm sure most of you guys can't look at this horribly designed game any longer, and I had to look at it even longer, so it's pretty obvious it had to go. I tried changing the colors and added some post-processing, but not even that could save what I had created, which meant I had to redo the visuals one more. I switched to a color palette with just 2 colors, which naturally you would think makes designing the game way harder. But for now, it really wasn't, and it just looked so much better. Of course, this whole process really took some time off the clock, but I'd say it was definitely worth it, as I don't have to look at this garbage anymore. Let's just get rid of it and move on. Nearly the whole day was spent on redesigning the game, and that's why I only had time left to add a scene transition, which will come in handy after I have more than one scene. I think the start of day 3 is the perfect time to explain my game idea in some more detail. So basically the player chooses a time limit, a map, and the abilities to complete 3 laps on said map. If he manages to do so, the player is rewarded with points, based on the difficulty of the selection he made, which means you can risk it and make it harder on yourself for a chance at a higher reward. In that way, I think we aligned with the theme pretty well. But I think with the right explanation, nearly every game could fit the theme. Take, for example, Minecraft. You can risk going in a cave, or the nether, or any structure for better equip. Or take Fortnite. You can land in a hotspot for more loot, but risk meeting other players there. Speaking of risk and Fortnite, anyone remember opening chests in Risky Reels? But we're getting off track here. Day 3 saw the selection page come to life, and I also had enough time to design 2 more maps. On day 4 I focused on making the movement feel as satisfying as possible, as I wanted the game to feel polished and responsive. First I added a trail and attached that to the player, which already added some depth to the movement. Next, I added some squash and stretch depending on the movement of the player, which helps by getting a better feel for the performed actions, making the movement already much more responsive. To give the actions an even bigger impact, I added a camera shake, but I think I might have to turn it down a bit. One thing we can't forget are particles. I started with landing particles and modified the opacity of them depending on how hard the player hit the ground. My brain wasn't stimulated enough, which is why I also added jumping particles. And another trail for whenever the player dashes. At the end of day 4, I feel like the movement made a huge jump and felt so much more smooth and responsive, which really helped the game a lot. After the high of day 4 came a low in day 5, which I thought couldn't get any lower, as it was time to design music and sound effects. But keep watching to see an even lower point in this jam. Okay, so sound effects, yeah, those weren't too bad. I just opened up SFXR and threw some together. But music? That's a whole other story. You know, it's one of those things where if you've got the talent, it comes easy. But I don't. I spent an entire day trying to get something decent, only to end up with this. And I think that was the result of a good day. It could have been way worse. And by the way, in the final version of the game, I also decided to switch to pre-made music. On day 6 I felt the deadline approaching, and I didn't even have a finished game loop yet, which is why the focus of the day was already pretty clear. I added the main menu, but couldn't come up with a name yet. Afterwards I added the how to play page and the settings page. Well, I don't know how, but that was already the end of the day. It feels like I've made little to no progress on the last 2 days, and day 7 is already the last day of the jam, which meant I really needed to get a move on, to bring everything together. First, the game needed a name, and I brainstormed and thought of perfect names describing the feeling of the game and really used all the power my brain had to offer. Before adding the final features, I wanted to export the game and see if everything works. And nah, something ain't right. Why does the movement feel this way? And why is everything so fast? And the trail so long? Wait, the whole movement feels so weird and unresponsive now. I really don't know what happens, but after I exported the game, even in the engine itself, the movement changed. I don't even know how that is possible. I didn't touch any script and suddenly everything is broken. Please, someone with some more knowledge than me, tell me what happened, because I don't want that to happen again. I tried to resolve the issue, but without much luck. After somewhat trying around, I managed to at least slow the movement down again. But something about it still felt off, which is really sad, as I spent a whole day making the movement feel nice and responsive, only to have one single click on the export button revert so much progress I made on the movement. The comments on the game were really happy with the movement and thought it was really responsive. I can only imagine what they would have said if they could feel how the movement felt before today. Anyway, the game needed to be finished, which meant I needed to create an itch page, which I also designed with mainly just the 2 colors, which I used for most parts of the game. I submitted the game to the jam, and after a 2-week rating phase, the results were in. As I've already told you, I received a lot of positive feedback, with the main concern for most being that the game was simply too hard. I also got some great ideas on how to make the game better if I ever revisit and update it. In the end, my game managed to secure the 248th place. I had a lot of fun making this game and taking part in this jam. Maybe I'll revisit this game someday, but for now I have some other great projects and videos you and I can definitely look forward to. To not miss them and support what I do, it would mean a lot to me if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks you.